How did you get involved in Doge?
It started 2 years ago when Doge wasn't even a word that we would come across. I was introduced by a mutual friend to Vivek Ramaswamy, who ran for president in the 24 election, the Republican primary. And we hit it off, and I traveled with him and was an advisor to him while I was working at my investment firm. And then, of course, President Trump had this historic victory and announced the creation of Doge, which Vivek and Elon were co-chairing. And I got involved advising there. And of course, as you know, Dr. Phil, Vivek stepped aside to run for governor. He'll be a great governor of Ohio. And then I just started working more and more as an external advisor on this work. And this idea of a DOGE dividend really sparked, I can't make this up, it sparked in a dream. I woke up, I called our head of research at Azoria, who is 24 years old, and I said, let's go to Capitol Grill. Let's flesh this out. In 2.5 hours, we had a 4-page PDF. We put it online, and I suppose the rest is history. The president has supported it, Elon as well, the cabinet. I was just on the Hill this morning meeting with members to win over their support, to put the evidence, the facts in front of them on why Americans deserve a refund of their hard-earned tax money.
All right. Well, if I understand this right, and I've been really interested in it, I'm a big fan of Doge. I think it's a very ambitious project. I don't know if it'll work or not, but I do know this. Everybody talks about cutting back government, cutting back spending, getting rid of fraud and waste and all this bloat and everything. But to my way of thinking, this is the first time that anybody has really gone after this with intentionality. I mean, really just said, everybody talks about it. This is the first time anybody has, in my view, said, I'm going to wake up every morning and this is going to be my purpose for getting up, and really focused on it. How much have they been able to cut so far? How many days have they been at it? How much have they been able to cut so far?
It's a great question. So we're 50 days in, and they've already cut over $100 billion, saved the taxpayer $100 billion. Now, it's easy for us to get lost with a big number like that, but what does that mean in terms of dollars and cents per taxpayer? The amount that Doge has saved in 50 days per taxpayer, Dr. Phil, is $670. To your listeners, to your viewers, to your massive audience, ask yourself, what would you do with $670 right now? And the cool thing is, we are in the early innings of this major government reform. You bring up a good point. Doge is not the first government arm to want to go after waste, fraud, and abuse, just like Uber wasn't the first company to want to put you in a car and take you to point A to point B, just like Apple wasn't the first touchscreen phone.
Right.
What matters, of course, is not the idea. Ideas are a dime a dozen. What matters is the execution. And President Trump and Elon, they are executing. They are rolling up their sleeves. They are not letting all of the gimmicks get in the way. They're going into the system. They're finding out the waste, fraud, and abuse, making it very public and transparent, and saying, look, enough's enough. Let's save the taxpayer money. And I believe the DOGE dividend proposal takes this DOGE project full circle. You identify, you save, and then you refund. When someone has wronged you, you are due restitution. And the truth is, the government has wronged the hardworking taxpayer. The taxpayer now deserves restitution.
And of course, this has been going on a long time, even under Reagan. Reagan tried to stop this, and government just kept getting bigger and just kept spending more. Democrats, of course, big government is kind of synonymous. Some of these things that we've been through, I've seen the list. Some of them are just, you couldn't make them up. If you were writing these for a comedy bit, people would say, it's nobody's going to believe that. It's over the top. I'm expecting them to come up with $100 billion to teach goats to dance in the rainforest next. It's that level of absurdity. But there are also cuts being made that have probably been mistakes, and they're having to restore some of that. And I think they should. I think when they make a mistake, they should say, hey, that got swept up and shouldn't have been made, so we're going to restore that. And I've loved the fact that they've been honest about that. And if they've cut something that needed to stay because it affected the elderly or it cut jobs that we really need, they've said, hey, that was a mistake. We're unraveling that, putting that back where it needs to be. And that to me was a big convincer that they're serious about this. They make a mistake, they say so, but they keep moving on. They don't listen to the critics and, oh, caught you making a mistake. And so they back off. They say, no, we'll just undo that and keep moving on. That's what I love about it.
That's exactly right. You don't judge someone by a mistake they made. You judge them on how they react when they made that mistake. And so I'm in DC right now as we speak, and most people, when they make a mistake here, they explain it away, they minimize it, or they try to blame someone else. Elon said in the Oval Office, quote, "That was a mistake with one respect to an Ebola program in Africa," and they quickly restored it. And so we should never hold anyone to the perfection standard. The standard you should be held to in government is if you make a mistake, own up to it, and then do the right thing. But the very fact, Dr. Phil, that we're even having this conversation where we know what mistakes they're making, where they're expressing contrition for a mistake and then putting in place the correction, that tells you that this is an organization that is credible, is honest, and transparent. And that's what Americans deserve.
Is it transparent enough?
I think so. DOGE.gov. Anybody can go on there right now, look exactly where the savings are coming from by agency, what programs were cut. There's been reporting in the New York Times where the numbers were overstated or reduplicated, and those were quickly addressed. And so the fact that we even know there are errors is because they were addressed in the first place. And that's someone you trust. Again, you don't judge someone for making a mistake. You judge them for how they respond when they've been confronted with that mistake. And Elon has time and again showed when you make a mistake, own up to it and keep moving forward.
One of the things that I've really liked about this is the transparency, because to me, if you have the transparency that I've seen, that's putting control back in the citizens' hands. Because if you don't have information, then you don't have any power. And by putting this on such a transparent basis where people can go to DOGE.gov, look up what's there, see who's being impacted, get the information, and then that leads to other places they can go to get more information. That's putting accountability on the people that are running it and giving the information to the taxpayer, to the voters. That's putting power back to the people. And that's what this is all about. That's what I love about this. It's giving the power back to the people. And I don't know if people have really thought about it that way. But the president, people are saying, oh, we got Elon Musk up there doing all this stuff, and he's not an elected official. He's not even really kind of a bureaucrat. He's sort of a hybrid something. He's totally accountable to the president of the United States. He can
Correct.
Stop that in 2 seconds. He can say, stop, you're fired, you're out of here, we're not doing this anymore. He is completely accountable to the president of the United States, who's accountable to the people through the Constitution. So it seems to me there's complete accountability, and we've added transparency, which seems like a good thing to me.
That's exactly right. The fact that there was no website called doge.gov or anything like it where you could actually see how your government dollars, how your tax dollars were being spent, that had never existed before with this level of detail and recency. And that is a testament to the transparency. And again, the president, to your point, is free to hire and fire whomever he'd like. Those powers are vested in him in our Constitution. And so keep doing what you're doing, Elon. I spoke with him last week, and he's a big fan of this proposal of the DOGE dividend, but because I think it really does call attention and wins the hearts and minds of folks to say, get on board with the fiscal responsibility movement. And also, as the president said last week on Air Force One, what the DOGE dividend does, Dr. Phil, is it incentivizes the taxpayer to report wasteful government spending. Why? Very simply, the more the government saves, the bigger that DOGE check ends up being. And so win, win, win across the board.
All right. Now, what's the formula? You're saying 20% of however much is cut would go back to the taxpayer.
Correct.
So they have to be someone that paid taxes in the year 2025.
They would have had to do one of three things. They would have had to pay federal income tax in the most recent year, or they would be currently receiving Social Security benefits, or they are a veteran who served the country and is now receiving veterans benefits. So if the taxpayer or the American were to fall into either of those three categories, and many will fall into all three, or at least two, that they would receive an equal portion of the DOGE savings, 20% of it.
Okay, so they've got to be Social Security benefits, veterans, or taxpayers.
Correct. Or taxpayers. Correct.
Okay. And if they fall into any one or all three, then they would be entitled to a portion of 20% of whatever is saved by DOGE. So your calculation is if they hit the 2 trillion, and that goes to 79 million households, that would be roughly $5,000 per household.
That's the rough calculation. And it's not predestined. If it ends up being more than 2 trillion, it'll be more than 5,000. And if it ends up being 1 trillion, the check will be for 2,500. We need Americans of all walks of life to chip into DOGE. And the way they do that is by reporting wasteful government spending that they're seeing. The more that DOGE saves, the bigger that check is. So there's nothing preordained or predestined about 5,000. That is based on the prediction of 2 trillion in total, not in a given year, but in the total run of DOGE, 2 trillion. I think we can actually get there, Dr. Phil, but it's going to depend on DOGE and Elon and the president, and also everyday taxpayers stepping up and saying, if I see waste, fraud, or abuse, I got to report it. DOGE cuts it, and then we get a cut of that action.
And so they're running at about 2 billion a day right now.
That's right. Anywhere between 2 to 4 billion. Again, we're over 100 billion 50 days in. So we're hitting some good numbers. But again, we haven't hit the Pentagon yet, where so much of it is. And as Elon said earlier this week, there is waste and fraud in Social Security. There is waste and fraud in Medicare and Medicaid as well. If you aren't entitled to those payments, if you are an illegal alien in this country and you're receiving federal benefits that you are not deserving of, that is fraud. We have to cut you out. We don't have to cut you out because we want to do it. It's because we have to do it. We have to protect those programs and the longtime recipients of them, and we have to protect the taxpayer.